contributions. We will now pass the basket. This is a weekly STEP meeting. Our format is as follows. The speaker is asked to talk for 25 to 30 minutes on the STEP of that week, followed by discussion or questions until 7 p.m. You can find these weekly meetings on our YouTube page, the Conscious Contact Speaker Group at Doylestown. Don't forget to smash the like button, subscribe, and share. That brings us to the speaker portion of the meeting on this day of October 30th, 2023 in Doylestown, PA at the Monday night 6 p.m. Stay Alive Literature and Step Group at St. Paul's Lutheran Church. Tonight's speaker is Carl, and they will be sharing on the experience on Step 5. Please help me welcome Carl.
Hi, my name is Carl. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Carl.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. I guess I need to qualify myself a little bit first. I am an alcoholic. I've drank alcoholically since my first drink at the age of 13. I drank, I think it was a beer and a half. It might have been 2 beers. I was hanging out with kids that were older than me because, I don't know, they were the kids that I was around. They all wanted to drink. They were always talking about it. They wanted to be like the kids that were older than them. You know what I mean? So they were always talking about drinking, and somehow we got a handful of beers or something. I think I drank like 1.5 beers, maybe 2 beers. Puked, passed out, made a gentle spectacle of myself. Had to be carried into the house, snuck into my house so my parents didn't find out. I had what most people would consider a very bad night. I woke up the next morning. I told myself I'm going to do a better job next time. Next time's going to be different. And every time I drank after that, I tried to do a better job. I tried to make it different, and it always worked out the same way. My first conviction at the age of 15, first DUI conviction at the age of 17, second conviction at the age of 19. I was in rehab by the age of 18, got out of rehab, and it wasn't that long after that when I got my next DUI. I was in prison twice before I turned 21. Been without my driver's license longer than I've been eligible for a driver's license, all related to alcohol. Didn't care anything about that. When I've been to prison more times than I can remember. County. I've been to state prison. Was upstate for 19 months on the third offense DUI, highest rate of impairment. That happened, went up there September 7th, 2006. Drank when I was in prison, got caught drinking when I was in prison, wound up in the hole of Graterford. If you've never been, I suggest you avoid it. And it was only then that I thought to myself, maybe I have a problem. After I'd been in state prison for the better part of a year, and I got caught drinking while I was in prison, I wound up in one of the worst places in southeastern Pennsylvania. It was only then that I decided maybe I had a problem. After I got out of the hole, they put me in the intensive drug and alcohol block, 24/7 Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was all about it. I wanted it. I wanted what they had. I didn't want to keep doing what I was doing. And we do the AA thing and the people, got out. I wanted to do 90 and 90. I wanted to do everything, and I wound up, when I was in there, they had meetings. They take you off the block to another block for somebody to come in from outside and, to like we do, come in and tell our story or whatever. And I love that because like the AA, I figured the AA I was getting in the treatment program wasn't real A. These guys coming in from the outside, that was really what I wanted. And I got really pissed off at the other guys that were showing up over there, that just wanted like some time off the block. They wanted to do something different. So I wanted to talk about AA. But anyway, I was all about it. Got out of prison, and I couldn't wait to get out to a real AA meeting to really get what I needed from this program. I got out of prison, went to Clubhouse in Lansdale, and there was nothing there that I thought I needed. And it didn't take me very long to start drinking again. I drank for a long time. And it was, I mean, I tried for years. I don't know how to really describe what it was. I mean, it took that much to get me to admit that I was an alcoholic, and then like all that drinking after that, I was like, yeah, I'm an alcoholic. There's nothing that can help me. You know what I mean? I'm just going to keep drinking. And it got to the point where I could either try again, or I was going to wind up living underneath a bridge. You know, I couldn't hold a job. I couldn't pay. Like there was nothing that there's no future for me. So I tried to quit, asked for help. It took me a long time. I wanted to quit on my own. Wasn't interested in coming back to AA. Tried that for probably over a year with very limited success. But I mean, after a while, after a short period, I mean, 5 months or so, it just turned into me like I just was a drunk that was trying to hide that I was a drunk. I was trying to convince people that I still wanted to quit drinking, but all I was doing was trying to drink. Anyway, I don't want to spend too much time on this. The only thing that allowed me, I mean, it was the grace of God. I came to this program and I always want to say somehow. I came into this program and these you people made God available to me. And through the grace of God, I've been able to stay sober for since January 8th, 2019. But I didn't want to do it the way you guys were doing it. I had no interest in that. There's a guy I know goes to the meetings in North Wales and Lansdale. Been around for a very long time. I can tell you there's 4 things you have to do to stay sober. Don't drink, go to meetings, get a sponsor, work the steps. And I was all about those first 2. I'm all about it because the meetings helped. There was no doubt about it. Without the meetings, I would not have been able to stay sober. I would not have been able to get any further. So many days I can't even remember how often I was got done work. I had to get to a meeting, but I just wanted to go out drinking. I couldn't come up with a good excuse I couldn't come up with a good excuse to call out from a meeting. So I'm going to go to the meeting, and after that I'm going to go out drinking. You know what I mean? I go to the meeting, and by the end of the meeting I wasn't thinking about drinking anymore. That happened to me so many times, and that's why I keep coming back, because every time that happened, and it happened over and over again, especially early sobriety, and every time that happened, it just reinforced that idea that I need to get to a meeting. That's why I come to a meeting every day. I don't know that I need to get to a meeting every day. If I don't get to a meeting today, I may or may not drink, but I know that when I needed to get to a meeting, there were people there who had time that had something to say that got me through that. So I need to be here at a meeting because there might be somebody that needs me. Not that the program's going to fall apart without me. But anyway, no interest in a sponsor. I don't want any accountability. I can do this myself. And I had no God. I had no interest in God. So I worked this program. I went to a lot of literature meetings, and I tried to figure out how to work this program without God, because God didn't make any sense to me. It wasn't going to be part of my equation. And I suffered through Alcoholics Anonymous for a long time. Everything was better. I mean, everything got better. I liked how my life was living sober. I loved it. I wanted more of that. But I wasn't going to do it the way that you guys did it. I wasn't interested in that at all. Um, until I started going to, COVID hit. I went like a couple months without meetings. I tried the Zoom thing early on, and I wasn't interested in that. It was a couple months before I found an outdoor meeting that I was going to. Got a new job. Uh, that schedule didn't work with that outdoor meeting. Started going to, anyway, had a difficult time getting the meetings. Wound up way out in left field, so far out in left field, as crazy as a drunk can get without drinking. And absolutely to the point where I only had a couple of options. And somehow, well, again, I say somehow. It's not somehow, it's the grace of God. I wouldn't admit it to myself then, but looking back on it, it was the grace of God that kept me sober and kept me around. I didn't like the Zoom meetings, but I had to get something, so I started doing the Zoom meeting early in the morning. That got me through for a couple of months until I ran into a couple of people, and I wound up in this church, 6 a.m. every morning. And a 6 a.m. meeting here was one of the only ones I could find open. The other one, actually, I was going to the clubhouse in Lansdale, but it was a discussion meeting. I mean, it was great. It was a hell of a lot better than not having a meeting. I came here, and it was all literature, and there's some good sobriety. Well, there's good sobriety in Lansdale as well. But I wanted to come here. I wanted the literature. I want to be in touch with the program. I wasn't. So anyway, I made this meeting my priority. 6 a.m. I was coming here at 6 a.m. 6 days a week, and they start this meeting, the 6 a.m. meeting here every day with a third step prayer. And I had a hard time with that for probably the first month that I was coming to this meeting. I knew I needed what was going on at that meeting, but I didn't want to say that prayer to a God that I didn't believe in. But I had to weigh it out. I needed my sobriety more than I needed to not believe in that prayer and that God. So I came and I participated. I started saying that prayer every morning. It was it is the grace of God. Today I will tell you it's absolutely the grace of God. Of myself I am nothing. The Father does the work. So I came and said that prayer every morning. I came to the meeting every morning, read the literature every morning. And I hate to get involved in the third step, but I can't go any further without it. It was sometime toward the end of July last year that I just started thinking more and more about God, and somehow I realized that, because somehow we were on the second step. Because every Wednesday it's a beginners meeting, and they go 1, 2, 3, the first 3 steps in the 12 and 12. So it was a second step pretty often. And every time we talk about the second step, people would say they would go straight to God, and how that had to do with God. I'm like, no, I used the meeting. The program was my higher power. And I started to realize that all these people in the program that were helping me, each and every one of those people that influenced my sobriety, each of them I'm sure would tell me that God got them sober. That the only reason they're sober is because of God. So God had to have been working through them to get to me. Anyway, that was my kind of God consciousness, and that really put me into a place where I was willing to do. I mean, even before sometime in the spring that I actually started saying the third step prayer before I came to this meeting. Anyway, I finally stopped fighting that. I finally stopped fighting the idea of a higher power, of God. I finally started fighting that idea. And it didn't take long. It says in the 12 and 12, you just need to crack the door open a little bit. And it says in the big book, doesn't it, that God does not make too hard work for people who earnestly seek him. I found that to be the case, because that's exactly what happened to me. As soon as actually, it seemed like it was as soon as I made that realization. I was driving down 202 in the middle of the afternoon, and that thought came to me. It seemed like it just like a snowball, like an avalanche. Like I finally stopped fighting it. I was able to bring God in my life, and that was one of the main reasons that I wasn't able to get a sponsor, because I wasn't gonna like, no. I mean, I understand your God got you sober. I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? I didn't want to have a fight with a sponsor. So now I don't have I don't have that hurdle to get over. I've accepted God. Now I can get a sponsor. So I went and I had a sponsor, a guy I've known for a long time at the clubhouse in Lansdale. And we went through the steps pretty quick, because I mean, I've been, at that point, I've been in the program for 3.5 years. I mean, I'd done step work. I mean, I wouldn't have made it that far without step work. And if it weren't for the grace of God, God was with me that whole time. There's no way. I would have told you 2 years ago, I would have told you, look at all this work that I did. Look at all this work that I did. And again, today I'll tell you, of myself, I am nothing. The Father does the work. So the third step got me to the point where I could talk to a sponsor. Work with a sponsor. And the fifth step, fourth step was actually, I kind of like laid the groundwork, like in the intervening, like in the years leading up to this, because I had to make peace with a lot of stuff. Like I struggled through a lot of shit, and I had to keep doing a little bit more. But anyway, the fourth step was a little tough. The fifth step was interesting. Was getting everything out, getting everything off my chest. And it's funny. One thing I was in the restroom right before the meeting started, and I realized there wasn't a speaker, and I realized it was the fifth step we were doing this week, and I was thinking about my fifth step and what I might say if I were asked to come up here. And the one thing in I've never been married. I have a daughter who's 18 years old. Her mom and I were together for about 11 months. I've never had a successful relationship. I think my longest relationship was 3 years, but I've had plenty of women who plenty of girlfriends. And I'm doing the fifth step. I'm right. I mean, I wrote out like all the names in the fourth step. I'm doing the fifth step, thinking about what I need to apologize, like what I did wrong. But anyway, like my whole life, I kept thinking, man, I got bad luck with women. I don't know, like all these women are crazy. I don't understand, why I can't like get along with them. Every breakup, like it was their fault. They broke my heart, all that, like this and that. So I'm writing out the fifth step, like what I'm going to say in the fifth step, and I realized every single one of the women who I was involved in a committed relationship, every single one of them I cheated on. Every single one of them. I mean, it really, like that was, I mean, I learned a lot of other things about myself, but that was like really the eye opener. Like the one thing that anything else I did in my life, I don't think I'd have came to that conclusion if I hadn't gone through this process the way that I went through it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it was a great experience. I sat down, I unloaded a lot of things, and I think I picked a pretty good sponsor, because he was he just sat and said, yeah. I mean, and he knew he'd been there before. You know what I mean? We got done. I stood up, I hugged him, and he said, and he was like beaming, and I was kind of, I don't know. It's an interesting experience. I felt like I just got out of like the 15th round with fucking Tyson or something. You know what I mean? But I don't know. I mean, I've heard people say that the fifth step was their first contact with God. I didn't really. I mean, I just been through that. You know what I mean? That was the one thing I wanted to get to. I really believe today that God needed me to be ready. God needed me to be ready to accept him. God needed me to be ready. I had to have a foundation set before I would be able to handle any of this. Because I mean, shortly after I got my sponsor, 3 weeks after I got my sponsor, my brother died. And I absolutely believe that if, I don't know what would happen, but God knew that I needed him to get through that. I mean, I had to have that, you know what I mean, to go through, and probably I needed to have the sponsor as well. And again, I don't want to turn too much to a third step thing, but I mean, it all has to come together. And I mean, everything had to be, I mean, you know, in my alcoholism, and I mean, even in my sobriety, there have been things that I needed things to be just such a way that this, all these things have to be in place before I do this. And I've gotten better at that, at avoiding that, because I mean, that's a huge pitfall, perfectionism or whatever. But this kind of isn't like the same thing, because it wasn't anything that I knew I needed. It's like all these things just happened, and it was everything I needed all at once. And I mean, I don't know. Ever since, I mean, I suffered and struggled every day through this program before I started believing in God and praying to God, before I got a sponsor. And that's the one thing that my friend who says those 4 things, he'll tell you, he'll talk at length about not drinking, going to meetings, working the 12 steps. He'll talk to you at length about all 3 of those things. There's only one thing he'll tell you about not having a sponsor. If you don't have a sponsor, you're gonna suffer. And I suffered. I can testify to that. Working this program without a sponsor was, I mean, I don't know if there, I mean, I guess there's more difficult, there may or may not be more difficult ways, but I can't imagine this program being any more difficult than what I put myself through trying to do it myself. So I mean, I don't know. Everything's great. I mean, everything is great. I mean, I can't say enough about this program. I mean, everything before I started working the steps, everything was so much better than it was. It seemed like everything was great. I finally, after 3.5 years, got a sponsor, started working the steps, and everything's 100 times better than how great it was. And I mean, that's all I can say. And I don't know. I think I've taken up enough of your time. Thanks.
Well, you didn't take up
Thank
any
you,
place. All right, please limit your sharing to 3 minutes. Please keep your shares related to the step. If you feel like drinking or if you've had a drink today, please see me or speak to someone after the meeting. We ask that you please refrain from the use of profanity. We are in a church and on a spiritual journey. Now I open up the room to you.